Welcome to the C-Suite Mentor, the place where you will learn the tools, strategies, and mindset to scale your business sustainably and build a lasting legacy. I'm your host, Theresa Cantley. As a fellow CEO, I understand what it takes to scale a business to 7 and multiple 8 figures. It's not necessarily what you might think. It requires a complete shift in how you think, strategize, and execute key actions in your business. My mission is to help CEOs step back into the driver's seat of their business by optimizing their operations, empowering their team, and staying in total alignment with their big vision. So, are you ready to exchange everything that hasn't worked for strategies that will? You're in the right place, so let's go. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the C-Suite Mentor podcast. I have a special guest today. I am joined today by Dominic George, and I'm excited to interview you. I've read the information about you, and we had some initial conversations, and I'm really looking forward to this interview. I think it's going to be a little different, and I think it's also going to be super helpful for people. Especially with everything that we are navigating in the world and in this country today. So thank you so much for joining me.
Definitely. And I'm so grateful to be here, Theresa. Excited to have this conversation with you.
Awesome. So remind me again, where are you located?
So I'm currently on the East Coast, originally from Oakland, California. I moved out to New York about 30 years. Well, no, sorry. I lived in New York or California for 30 years, moved out to New York about 10 years ago. And I've been on the East Coast for about 10 years, but I'm currently located in New Jersey.
Oh, what part of New Jersey?
In Newark.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. My husband flew out of there and is flying back from there. And believe it or not, it was the first time I ever flew out of Newark. I was like,
really?
I'm like, it's so simple.
It's like very simple. It's so easy, especially comparison to all the other area or airports around. Like you're literally in and out, which I love.
Yeah, and everything is facial recognition, which is unbelievable. Yeah.
Yes.
I went over to Ireland in January with a client of mine, and we were flying. It was the first time that I had flown out of Newark in years, and I was like, "Wow, this is a piece of cake." Philadelphia is a pain in the rear to fly in and out of.
There's a lot of airports that are pains, but I love it because they just made some recent upgrades, so it's become a lot more efficient.
Yeah, no, definitely. And if you are. We were an American. We were so loyal to American Airlines, but I think now we're converting over to United.
Yes.
So anyway, but we're not here to talk about airports.
Yes.
We are here to talk about some leadership and some business stuff and everything kind of in between. So Dominic is a dedicated leadership coach with a passion for empowering Black men to ascend from mid-level leadership roles to senior leadership positions. With a wealth of experience and a deep understanding of the unique challenges faced by Black professionals, Dominic brings a tailored approach to his coaching, providing targeted guidance and strategies for career advancement. Love all of that. But I think the thing that really stuck out for me the most when you had reached out and I had done some digging on you and what you do is that really your mission goes beyond that. It goes beyond helping people with career progression and really helping them kind of move throughout the leadership ladder. But it's really about breaking barriers and really reshaping that narrative for Black men in leadership. So let's kind of start, how did you get started? What led you to all of this?
Yeah, and thank you for that summary of both my experience and some of the things that I do, as well as just the undertone of the mission. So I've been a coach for a very long time, actually. I started when I formerly an athlete, got the opportunity to really travel the world as a result of swimming in my youth. And
Mhm.
it opened up my eyes when I returned from college. I came back to a recreation center where I grew up swimming and got to offer my skills and guidance to other young people as they were navigating the swim world. And what that really opened up for me was the perspective that you could truly change somebody's life just by being present and guiding them in a different direction that they weren't aware of. And so I did that for a couple of years in my early 20s. And really accelerated pretty quickly in my professional career as I navigated various different industries, but all related to leadership. Been an administrator, an executive at various different tables. And what I learned through that process is two things. One, I had people who were always willing to help me, no matter
Mm.
where I was in life. They were always willing to just stop and answer some of the questions that I had along the way. And mainly because I was a very curious child, I was a curious adult. I continue to be curious
Me
just because I'm
too.
a lifelong learner. And I got into this profession because I saw so many other Black men specifically, but just people navigating the leadership journey fall into really it's just pitfalls. Like they were
Yep.
walking into areas where maybe it was unknown that they were navigating a space, and it just could have been handled differently. And based on
Mm.
the guidance that I got, it made it so much easier. And so I decided I wanted to jump in and make a change in the workspace and help people not only navigate that space, but also learn how to not lose themselves in the process. And so I've been coaching, I would say, for the last 15 years in different spaces, but really my own business for the last 8.
What do you think is the biggest change that we need to make with leadership?
Which is a great question, Teresa. I think the biggest change that we need to make in leadership is allowing people to both grow and develop in who they are authentically. I find that people are often trying to mimic the person next to them versus actually centering on their authentic self in order to grow and develop there. Because I believe that each human is uniquely qualified to lead something, and when we show up as our full self, that's when we get to lead a room to wherever they need to go, because really you're what's missing from the room. So I would say that the biggest thing is to allow people to truly be themselves in spaces.
Tell me a little bit more about what you see with, because I see the same thing. The whole thing about people, they just want to mimic somebody else instead of being their authentic self.
Yeah.
Like, tell me a little bit, like, let's unpack that a little bit. Why do you think people do that? Like, what do you think is behind that?
Yeah, I think often we see success on the surface and we don't often understand the nuances that are behind the strategy, the nuance behind why people are making certain decisions. And so I believe when you see success from a distance, and
Mhm.
you're interested and eager for that success, it's natural to just try to replicate it, whether you have all the information or not. But I think it's so important to align both strategy to that process as well as your unique identity. And really, you're the only person with your fingerprint in the world. Like, you're the only person who could see the world from your lens. And when I'm coaching individuals, I always stress alignment over praise, alignment over any other form of identity that separates you from who you truly are. I think it's the most important thing that really position us to be great leaders. And but to answer your question specifically, I think people are often mimicking success that they don't understand, without realizing their version of authenticity is the true success that is going to propel them forward, to the dreams and futures that they're looking for.
So what is, like, if somebody comes to you and they're struggling with that, what are the like the tips that you give them so that
Yeah.
they can really lean into being, because I'll tell you what, right now in the world, on some hand, it's harder to be yourself,
Hmm.
and on another hand, it's easy to be yourself. But I think there's one key element that really that really allows you to really step in and be authentic. And I think that comes from A, knowing who you are,
For sure.
and then also B, having the courage to be who you are.
Exactly.
So what are some things that when someone comes to you and they're struggling with that, because a lot of leaders do struggle with it, they just don't
Hmm.
want to admit it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you tell people to do?
Yeah, I really focus on three M's in my coaching practice. The first is mindset. The second is mastery. And then the third is motivate. And I take people through this journey of first starting with what you're naming, right? Which is your mindset. If you're not in a space to truly understand the value that you're bringing and understand the ideas and the perspective that is coming into your brain, whether it's positive or negative or anything in between, you're really going to be stuck. And so I teach people how to get really clear on their thoughts.
Mm.
Sometimes that's sitting with it, sometimes that's journaling, sometimes that's through a series of prompted questions that I'll ask people along their leadership journey of who they truly want to be, what are their values, what are their non-negotiables as they're really forming their leadership identity, and getting really clear on what is your mindset currently, and then where do you want your mindset to be when you're in that executive seat. And so I start there with people to really get clear on like who you are, and that's your mindset.
Mhm.
From that point is when you could really stretch and go into that mastery phase of looking at the strategy, looking at the things that are going to make you a great leader, a qualified leader, a person who others look to both aspire to, but also want to be led by. And I think between both of those things in the earlier stages of someone who is really questioning, like, how do you show up for yourself and be yourself in your truest form of authentic identity, is to get clear on your mindset and erase some of those negative thoughts that are preventing you from being who you are.
Mm. Do you get a lot of pushback from people about journaling?
I definitely get a lot of pushback from men about journaling. Um, I found it's come easier to some and harder to others, but there is definitely a lot of pushback there. But I find when people actually put pen to paper and they're sitting with their thoughts in written form, because we all have thoughts in our mind. Some of us like release it in different ways, whether that's through verbal conversation with others, sometimes it's singing, sometimes it's thought, like whatever it is to get it out of your mind. But when you're actually sitting with it and you're able to read and reflect on what you said at one point in your life versus what you said yesterday or today, I think it just lands differently for people. And once they get into it, I think they see the value of journaling.
Mm. I somebody who has struggled with mindset, and I work with leaders today on mindset. It's hard to erase those negative thoughts.
Hmm, definitely.
So
It can
what
be
are the
hard.
key yeah. So what is your special sauce, your secret sauce to like help people to do that?
Yeah. I think it's a few things, right? So, one, anyone who's struggling with those either negative thoughts or just thoughts that you just don't want to be consumed by, it's
Mm,
really about your environment. Surrounding yourself with individuals who you either want to think like, who already think like you, or people who are coaches, I would say, who are already positioned to understand where you're going. And it's almost a forcing in the beginning to really analyze, like, what are you thinking and why, like get really clear on the why and have people around you who are going to push you to understand that why. Um, and I would say some of my special sauce is I really enjoy taking people through an understanding of how do you lead in your personal life versus how do you lead in your professional life? Because I believe when both of those things align, whether it's friends and family, whether it's your community, whether it's like your extracurricular activities that you're invested in, whatever the outside component of your career, when those things align with how you lead in both of those spaces, um, I think it clicks for people, and I really help people bridge that dichotomy in order to get clear on like you can have a mindset in one space and then bring that to another space. And I think it comes easier for people in their personal life. And then somehow it gets tainted or distorted when they think about the career version of who they want to be in terms of mindset.
Mm. Do you think a person changes? Like, do you think their thinking changes from how they think and how they show up in their personal versus how they think and how they show up in their business? Or do you think it's the same?
I think it's aligned and it's similar, but I think people approach it differently.
Mm.
And um, like I said, you could be at home with your family and lead your household very well if you have children, or in a relationship, right? We're always leading in some direction. Or it could be you're invested in volunteer work in your community and you're really clear on how to show up as a leader in that space. Um, I think it's similarly aligned when you get into the workspace in your career progression. But I think people get nervous. They overanalyze what needs to happen versus what actually is happening. And it's really just a matter of getting clear on like what are the thoughts that are coming into your mind, and let's dissect them so that you can get clear just as you are in your personal life. But I do think both of them are aligned. It's just a matter of helping people get clear to see the alignment in both.
Do you think you spend more time on mindset or do you think you spend more time on strategy?
I definitely spend a lot more time on mindset in the beginning because that's a foundation for me. If you can get clear on your mindset, you could conquer any workspace, any career space, anything that you're up against. Because I think mindset is always going to show up in different environments. And if you don't have that initial foundation, there's always going to be cracks where you're going to have to either relearn or reposition how you're thinking about strategy. And once people are able to have some level of mastery over their mindset, then the strategy becomes simple because people then get it. It's usually
Yeah.
the mindset that is a little bit more challenging for people to think abundantly.
Hmm. So you said something interesting. You said, the mindset piece and
Mhm.
really shifting negative thoughts, identifying them and then shifting them. It really centers around surrounding yourself with the right people.
Definitely.
And I think that, in a world where so many people are like people are so divided, I think that the thing that they're missing is that community is a
Mm.
superpower in itself.
Definitely.
So I think that, that's a powerful statement. And I am like, what would you tell someone who is struggling to like build that community? Like
Yeah.
what would you tell someone in order to help them to shift those thoughts so that they can, really achieve the things that they want to achieve?
Yeah, and a great question, Teresa. The I think we all, in some ways, get overwhelmed by the end result. Often, when we're like trying to reach a goal, we only see the big picture at the end, and sometimes that prevents people from even taking a step forward or even
Mm.
taking the initial step to make the progress. And so, what I like to do in my both coaching sessions, just in life in general, is really break down like what are you trying to accomplish, why, and then what are the steps to get there. So more of that strategy work. And I would say for the person who's struggling to create that community, it really starts with one conversation. Like it starts
Mm.
with one conversation with one person. You build with that person over time, and you start to figure out like who are you aligned with and who's thinking the way that you want to think, who's aspiring to do the things that you are doing or who already has those things, and you start to just have conversation with them to understand what are their values, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, um, what are the places where you both can have synergy to support each other. But I would say it really starts with that first conversation, and that could be fearful, especially if you're not a person who likes to just go up and talk to others, which can be me sometimes. I am a natural introvert who's
Me
learned how
too.
to be extroverted in various different spaces. But it really just takes practice. Once you do it one time, it may be nervous or nerve wracking the first time, but once you do it over and over again, you'll get comfortable and you'll start to find that people will be attracted to you. And so you won't even have to go and have all of those conversations as the starting point. People will just find you and you'll find your community.
So what was your biggest challenge that you had? Because obviously, not obviously, but we serve the person we once were.
Yes, definitely.
So that being said, I guess my question is these things that we're talking about that are really have become your super strengths, are those things that you've struggled with or have been
Mhm.
a challenge for you in the past?
Yeah. Such a great question, and I would say that the turning point for me was one getting a coach. Like I
Mm,
used to be in a space where I thought I could just do it all myself. Like I was the extraordinary athlete. I was the one who was like the A personality in school, always like doing the studying on my own and just trying to make a way, just making it through. And so I was always on that grind. And I thought that that would translate to every space in my life, which it has to some degree. But what I learned actually in school, what I learned in sports, what I learned earlier on in my career was that when you work with others, it just makes life that much easier and that much more exciting. And so the first time that I actually hired a coach, it taught me a lot of it showed me a lot of windows and doors that I didn't know that I needed at the time and I didn't know that were accessible to me. Um, and so I would say that that was the first turning point. What I learned in that first coaching call was the brilliance and the benefit of cross departmental relationships, which I had never
mm,
really explored before. I was always
mhm.
that person who was like in my own lane, in my department, trying to do my best daily, but forgetting about the full company that I was working with. And it was not until I spoke with that coach, my first coach, that was like, talk to the other director in the other department or get to know that
Yeah.
person who is working on a similar initiative that you are, just from a different angle. And that was really the turning point, like learning how to talk to people within my company, even if we didn't share the same direct work.
Gotcha. What did you do in corporate?
So I've done a number of different things. I've worked in youth development for a bit. I've actually worked in government spaces in working on education policy. I've done some consulting with leadership development and helping companies create manager training programs. I've sort of bounced around in my career a lot, mostly because I wanted to learn as much as I can. So I've been in the education space, I've been in the financial space, fundraising, and then towards the tail end of my space in both corporate, nonprofit, and education, it was around leadership development.
Hmm. Interesting. So it is true. You do serve the person you once were.
I definitely do.
So let's talk a little bit about let's go back to your mission and a little
Mm,
bit about like the whole thing of like really breaking the barriers and reshaping the narrative for Black men in
mhm.
leadership.
Yes.
What is that, what are those barriers that you see that they face?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. There's a number of people who I work with who often feel the pressure to perform, and
Mm,
inside of that, often lose who they think they could be in that
mhm,
identity space as a leader. And so
mm,
I would say that that's probably the number one thing that I come up against, which is why I spend so much time on mindset. Is people just feel that pressure of I got to
yeah.
do it right, I got to show up in this particular way, I gotta really shift like who they are in order to perform at the highest level and get the results that they're looking for. And so a lot of people come with that mindset, and that's what I'm often up against in the beginning parts of a coaching session. And that's one thing I see. The second is imposter syndrome of
Mm,
people who are in spaces who have been successful, majority of their life, if not all, and still question, am I deserving to be in the seat that I'm in?
Yeah.
Um, and so I would say between both of those things, those are the biggest things that come up in my coaching sessions with some of the clients that I speak to.
So who do you work with primarily? Do you work with younger leaders? Do you work with old folks like me? Or do you work with in between?
Yeah. It's really the individuals who are in that middle management starting point and looking to progress towards senior leadership. So you could be a senior leader looking to go to a chief position. You could be an executive looking to go to that VP spot, or you could be someone in that middle management position who is looking to get into the executive seat. Um,
Yeah, C-suite.
but it ranges in terms of age, but I would say that my typical clients tend to be somewhere between 28 to 45, somewhere in that range, looking to progress.
So what do you think makes a good leader?
I think what makes a great leader is someone who is able to listen first. I think
Mm,
oftentimes we're in spaces where people feel like they need to tell first and then listen later. But I think an extraordinary leader is someone who listens first and then responds based on the input of everyone that they're hearing alongside their own individual perspective and not losing that piece. I think that's the major thing that makes a great leader, someone who listens to the people.
What do you think that, with everything that, again, that this country is navigating, that we're navigating in the world, and really, I have my own coaching philosophy of like really um, breaking the mold and getting
Mm,
out of the old playbook of
mm,
leadership. What do you think leaders need to do now to really step into that new era of leadership, taking into consideration what makes a great leader in comparison to what we're seeing now?
yeah. Another great question, Teresa. The so as I think about the three M's, right? So there's
Mhm.
mindset, there's motivate, and then there's mindset, mastery, and then there's motivate. When you get to the tail end of those M's, which is to motivate, what I really focus and help focus the leaders that I coach around is what type of legacy do you want to leave? And that being the end goal of where your why lives, where your compass is pointed at least. And I really work with leaders to really get clear on what is that legacy that you want to leave, because that will define how you show up in the space. That will define what are your non-negotiables in leadership, the things that you're not willing um, to both stand for, against, or with, and the things that will have you shaking in your leadership when you're stressed and in a space where it's not so comfortable, because leadership is not always the most pleasant space to be in. It's certainly the most rewarding, but there are times where it will be stress. And so I often push people to think about what is the legacy that you want to leave, because that will motivate others to shift the planet to the space that you want to see. Um, so I would say that that's the biggest thing, to really think about, like, what is the legacy in tangible terms. I really support leaders which navigating their leadership DNA.
Mm.
I believe it's about values. We all come into the workspace with values, and sometimes there's values that have outlived the workspace, and then there's values that are newer to the individuals who we are either serving, working with, or in collaboration with. And it's really about, like, how do you mold those values together in order to take the company to the next level. And I believe that every voice matters in the workspace, and a leader who can really understand how do you mobilize individuals based on what both they want to see, where the company is going, and where your leadership DNA is taking you in terms of strategy. That's how we shift, and that's how we transform to a new wave of leadership.
Mm. What does legacy mean to you?
Mm, great question. Legacy for me means actually, let me think about this. No one's actually asked me that directly.
It's a stumper.
Yes, it is. It's a great question, Teresa. For me, I would say the legacy means that you were able to, or I'll speak in the I. For me, legacy means that I have left a planet that is worth occupying.
Mm,
It's a space in which people get to live abundantly because I stepped in and I did the hard work early so that other people could have a better process forward. Legacy for me is leaving a roadmap so people just have an easier time making decisions based on someone who's already done it. And so my goal in terms of my own legacy is to leave the world a better place.
mm. I love that. I love that. That aligns with I always say that like we need to leave this planet much better than we found it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 50 this year, so like
Congratulations.
I know I made it.
Yes.
But it's like, I've lived through recessions and I've seen, I mean,
Mhm.
obviously you've seen the pandemic, but just all kinds of things. And it's like, wow, like
Yeah.
my goal is to leave this world better than we found it, for
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
And
Um,
Teresa, when I also think about legacy, I think
mhm,
about a couple things, and I know that this is like a privileged space that not everybody gets this opportunity. But I was lucky enough to, like I said, travel the world very young through the sport of swimming. I just happened to be good at the time and was able to be afforded the opportunity, and then that led to a later life of really loving travel. And so, what I
mm,
loved about travel, as it aligns to leadership and legacy, is there are so many different people around the world who are equally trying to make the planet better. And I believe it's when we step out of our own environment, our own space, that we start to see how everything is connected. And I believe truly that when you're connected to other people, whether it's across the continent, across a department within your company, across the street, your neighbor, like you get to really enhance whatever thing that you're working on because you're doing it together. And I believe that that's true leadership.
mm. I love that. I love that. The interconnection,
Yeah,
that's what really, like, that's humanity.
definitely.
Is, realizing that we're all interconnected. We all have flaws. We're not, none of us are perfect,
Hmm.
and that, yeah, we're all interconnected. As I said, community is our superpower,
Yeah.
and people don't see that. Like I
Yes.
said, people want to be divided by all kinds of things and
Hmm.
just put labels on things instead of realizing that when community comes together, I mean, if we just follow what the animals do,
Yeah.
when community comes together, like it's the community is stronger.
Agreed.
So, yeah, for sure. We have a lot to learn from
Mm,
animals. I always I say so I have two rescue dogs, and I always say that dogs are angels without wings, and
mm.
they were sent here to teach us something. So yeah, I
I
always
fully agree
default
with
to
that,
the
actually.
animals.
Yeah, I used
What's
to have
that?
a dog actually.
Oh,
Taught me a
really?
lot. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, mix between a lab and a Rottweiler. So huge dog, 100 pounds. Recently passed away, but taught me so many
Aw.
different lessons about life, which I really loved.
Oh yeah, my ours do too. Every day, they're
Yeah.
half pit bull, half Chihuahua, and
Mm.
whenever we tell people that, they're like, "How is that possible?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Yes.
God really was like, "Okay, we're just gonna take
Put them
parts that are
together. Yeah,
mismatched, and we're just gonna put them together."
I love that.
Well, this is a really good conversation,
Mm,
and I'm so glad that I had you on here. You have some great insights, and before I let you go, I have some questions for you, so
mhm.
people can get to know you as a person. Meanwhile, by the way, we're talking about leaders and they feel like they have to perform and they feel like they have to live up to something. And meanwhile, I'm watching my one dog chase her tail. I'm like, wow, that's fitting. So tell me something. What's your big dream?
My big dream. My big dream is that I get to create a space where, in terms of professional dreams, my big dream is that I get to create a space where other Black men get to motivate and inspire others just by
Mm,
walking into the room because of the knowledge that they've gained, because of the community that they've created, because of the skills that they've developed over time, that they get to multiply and inspire others as they walk into other leadership spaces. That would be my professional dream.
mm, I love that. Where was your favorite place that you went on vacation
Favorite place,
since you
hands
traveled?
down. Yeah, favorite place, hands down, has to be South Africa. I went to Cape
Mm,
Town, and the most beautiful city, the most beautiful country. It was just amazing. The beaches were nice. The people were nice. I knew no
I've
one
heard.
when I got there and came out with literally 7 friends who still connected to this day. Best trip.
Mm. Love that. I've heard, I used to work for a husband and wife. This is years ago. They came over from the country, opened up retail stores over here, and they used to tell me stories about, because they lived in Cape Town and how beautiful the sunsets were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and just like the country just being so beautiful. My one client, who we were talking about me becoming a partner in his businesses, he was just over there. He plays, and I didn't even know this was a thing. He plays field hockey,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
he's 71, going to be 71, and he played in the World Cup for seniors, I guess. But I like field hockey, I don't know. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know like that was like a big giant sport, but apparently it's very popular over in Europe. But yeah, he was just over there and he said the same thing. He said it's a beautiful country.
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
it's the best
Yeah.
place, and I love that, Teresa. The both 71 field hockey, like doing all the things. It just reminds me that one, it's never too late to do anything that you
Nope.
want to do, and there's always a space on the planet for someone to thrive, and I love that. But Cape
Yeah.
Town was definitely a favorite place.
Yeah, no, he loved it. And I mean, we of course I got all these videos and stuff and I was like, okay, you're clogging up my phone, but but it was I mean, the scenery was gorgeous. What is something that brings you joy that you absolutely love to do? Because I think people don't spend enough time doing things that really bring them true joy and
Mm,
make them come alive. So what is
yes.
that for you?
Hands down, I said I was an introvert on the earlier part of this conversation, but I truly love people. Like it's my favorite thing, both to watch people, to laugh with people, to be in community with people. I have such a large community friend circle, and which wasn't true like in my earlier 20s. Like I was sort of a loner, and in my 20s, I made a shift in my mind that I said I was going to make friendships that were long lasting, that were supportive, that were caring, that were uplifting. And throughout my 20s into my 30s and almost in my 40s now, I found the most unique and loving community that I've ever had the opportunity to be around. And so for me, joy is sitting down, laughing with them. It's getting on a phone
Love
call,
that.
having a conversation, and just being present to what's happening for people in people's lives, in my friendships, as well as my family. Just sitting around talking and laughing. I could do that
I
all
love
day.
that. I love that. I love people too. My grandfather used to say, Teresa, you ask so many questions. Why do you ask so many questions? And I'm like, because I love people. I
Yeah.
love to hear their stories.
Hmm.
I mean, my husband laughs at me because we go to a sporting event and he's like, did you see that? Did you see that kick? And I'm like, no, I'm
I
watching
was
the people.
sorry.
I love to people watch.
Yes.
What is something that was a huge hurdle that you needed to get over?
Mm. I would say a huge hurdle for me was understanding that I was enough as I am,
Mm,
versus who I thought I needed to be.
that's a big one for
Yeah.
people. That is a big one. One last question. What are you most grateful for?
I am most grateful for the ability to wake up, breathe, and literally try the day over again. I wake up more recently than earlier in my life, just waking up and actually saying thank you, saying thank you for another day. Thank you for the opportunity to really try again. Um, it's truly like or at least when I think about it, life is such a brilliant place to explore. And it's I don't know, I'm truly grateful for the opportunity just to like keep trying and moving forward and progressing and living out my dreams the way that I see fit. I'm really grateful for that.
That's awesome. Getting better at life every day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Well, Dominic, thank you so much for this amazing interview. It was so great to have you on the show and be able to share your story and be able to, just talk about like this mission that you have, which is like so critical to the growth of our society, to the growth of our world, and really truly living into the legacy that you have, which is to make this world a better place. So thank you
Mm.
so very much for having this transparent conversation and for joining me on the show. I really appreciate it. Tell everybody where they can find you, where they can learn more about you out on the interweb.
Yes, of course. I would say that the best place to reach me is on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn handle is Dominic C. George, and you could reach me there directly. I'm the person responding, and I'm the person who is engaging in those conversations. And also, if I also have a podcast, newsletter, all located on that LinkedIn profile. And if you just want to learn lessons about how to navigate leadership without losing yourself, I also have my book that you could access on Amazon. It's called The Authentic Edge: Leading Without Losing Yourself.
Awesome. We will make sure that we have all of the links in the show notes
Mhm.
so that everybody who's listening can go and click right through and get all this goodness that you offer out there. So thank you again. Thank you so much for joining me, and everyone who's listening. I hope we all take care of each other just a little bit more than we already do. And until next week, have a great rest of your week. Bye for now.
Thank you, Theresa.
Hey there. Thank you so much for listening. If you found value on the show, please follow the podcast so you never, ever miss an episode. And I would love, love, love if you would leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify for me. Even better, share the show with a fellow business owner ready to step fully into their CEO leadership role. Because right now, more than ever, the world really needs next level leaders. And by the way, did you know you can text me all your questions and get real-time feedback? You absolutely can. Just text the word CEO to me at 610-215-2838 to get connected. One last goodie for you before I go. If you're ready to scale your business and have a co-creator working right by your side, my C-Suite Mentor Program may be perfect for you and your possible new second in command. Just visit thecsuitementor.com to get started.